Welcome to the Men's Mental Health Podcast with your host, Dr. Daniel Bates, licensed professional clinical counselor, educator, researcher, and longtime advocate for men's mental health. Each episode, Dr. Bates unpacks the science of men's mental health, from addiction, help-seeking, and male depression to culture and masculinity. You'll hear interviews with leading scholars and candid conversations with everyday men who've struggled and overcome, with insights drawn from Dr. Bates' 15 years of clinical practice serving men in Kentucky and Ohio. Whether you're a professional, a partner, or a man searching for practical tools, this show delivers evidence-based strategies you can use right now. No jargon, just real talk. Let's redefine what real strength looks like. Let's dive in.
The most influential voice in your life isn't your mom, your best friend, or your worst critic. It's you. It's your voice. You are the most influential person in your own life. And if you find that your internal self-talk is destructive, there are ways of retraining it to build you up. If you aren't careful, your self-talk can be shaped by the worst influences in your life. We tend to take those internal voices and internalize them and make them our self-talk. And it's just part of our human psychology, but we have a negativity bias, which means negative influences and voices tend to make the most impact on our psychology. And you hear that negative voice long enough, it becomes what is someone else's voice. Now it's your voice. So I want you to identify what are the phrases that you often repeat to yourself. And I want you to reverse engineer, where did those phrases come from? Whose voice are you hearing in your head when you tell yourself those negative things? And I hate to say it, it gets repeated a lot from mental health professionals. But awareness and self-reflection is the first and most essential step that you can take towards growth in identifying that it's not you and your voice, it's X, Y, or Z's voice. It could be an amalgamation of 4 or 5 different negative voices in your life. And typically in my experience, those negative voices, they're just negative for the sake of being negative. There's rarely any truth or help in those negative voices. And if that's true, that it's not helpful and negative for the sake of being negative, why not extract it from your consciousness and in its place, put a more positive, helpful voice? Your self-talk is not permanent. It's not written in stone. You can change it. I usually illustrate my points about self-talk with sharing a story. So buckle up. You're going to have a little bit of story time with Dan. I once had a basketball coach who used mockery to motivate players. And growing up as an athlete, this wasn't that unusual. I've seen other coaches do it. But the approach just never worked with me. It never landed. It usually deflated me, didn't motivate me. It discouraged me, if anything. And then one random summer, I had a summer ball coach, and the way he interacted with me just built me up. I felt like he believed in me and cared about me. I felt like he saw potential in me. And the way I played that summer basketball was the best basketball I ever played. But unfortunately, he didn't get hired on, and I went back to the coach who used mockery. And then my performance plummeted as well. And so that was a quick example of how those external voices affected my self-image and my performance. The coach who believed in me, who built me up, who saw potential, I played to the level of that belief. To the coach who criticized me and mocked me, I played down to the level of that belief. So if you've had nothing but negative voices in your life, or maybe you've had positive voices in your life, but you've tuned them out, and you've discounted them, and you've only allowed the negative voices to influence you, I want to suggest a new option for you. I want to suggest that you can consciously re-internalize external voices to build or to construct a new self-talk, a self-talk that can guide you and support you through hardships, through challenges. Because every time I've talked with a client, they've said time and time again, when they have a setback or they have an obstacle or a challenge, that's difficult in its own right. But when the negative self-talk kicks in, they're done. The negative self-talk just totally demotivates them, discourages them. They can't recover. They're not very resilient. But for those with the positive self-talk, they are far more resilient. The blows don't hurt them as much. the obstacles are, not as challenging or difficult. They're able to overcome them. They're able to be more resilient because they're talking to themselves in a way that's really constructive and helpful. So here's my challenge to you. Either seek out voices from your past or your present and really focus on the way that person talks to me, talks to others, talks about themselves. There's something attractive about that voice. If that voice were my self talk, I would do so much better in terms of my mental health. It could be a mentor, could be a really good friend, it could be an influencer, it could be a book, it could be a character. Now I want you to spend intentional time listening to that voice over and over and over again. I want you to saturate yourself in that voice or voices. And then I want you to take time and write a script. If I were to talk to myself in the manner of the voice that I'm trying to re-internalize, what would be the things I would say? How would I do it? If I went through a hardship or a challenge, how would I talk myself through that if I really did have that voice online programmed into my head? Not only do I want you to write the script and then practice it using repetition, I also want you to try to connect with the emotion. What would be the emotion or the appropriate corresponding emotion if you really were to talk to yourself in that new way? Would you feel encouraged? Would you feel resilient? Would you feel stable, safe, optimistic, hopeful? Like, yeah, this is tough, but I can get through this. And then you have to actively catch yourself. When you start using the negative self-talk, say, whose voice is that? And then if I had the option and if I had the choice, do I want that voice to be the most influential? And if the realization is I do have a choice and I don't want that voice to be the most influential voice in my head, whose voice do I want it to be? The positive self-talk. So instead of saying things like I can't, say things like I can, or I'm learning, I'm capable, I don't have it yet, but I will. And then neural pathways are shaped through repetition, the repetition of behaviors. So the way you reprogram your brain is through behavioral repetition. You have to do this on a regular, consistent basis over a variety of domains in a variety of different contexts. When you're feeling good, when you're feeling bad, when you're challenged, when things are smooth. All right, so thanks for hanging out for a longer video. And I want to end by saying this. Your self-talk is your constant companion. It is the most influential voice in your life. It can either build you up or tear you down. If you happen to have one of those negative self-talk voices in your head, I'm sorry that it's there, but it's not the end of the story. You can consciously construct a new positive self-talk that can sustain you and empower your resilience over a number of different challenging contexts. So you can do this. You got this. Just try.